So we're back again with doing literary analysis on James Joyce's Araby short story. Last time we finished sort of the last layer of the essential things. So we finished plot and conflict. So now we're moving on to that lower tier. What are the literary choices that are being made to help further the message of the story, the theme? So today we're going to focus on tone and mood. I've grouped these ones together because often they can get sort of interchanged and there's a slight difference to them. So tone is the character's attitude towards the subject, towards something. So it's specifically, how does the character in the story feel about something? So if you hate, I don't know, you hate English class, you might feel like the mood of a story set in an English class. You might feel, God, it's so annoying, things like that. But if the character likes it, the tone that the character has towards the subject might be different than the mood. So the mood is how the audience is feeling about what's going on. So if you're thinking about Araby, the character's tone towards Mangan's sister is this, deep-seated sort of desperation, right? He feels so desperate to please her and make her notice him. But your mood about what's going on in the actual story, you might be feeling sort of maybe pity. Maybe you feel sympathy for him, and you feel sort of sad about the situation that he's being put in, or maybe you even feel sort of weirded out because he's so obsessed with this girl that we know nothing about. But that's how the tone and the mood might differ. So we're going to read a little bit more today and try and pinpoint elements of tone and elements of mood and see how we can better understand that. So let's go ahead and read this section. What innumerable follies laid waste my waking and sleeping thoughts after that evening. I wished to annihilate the tedious intervening days. I chafed against the work of school. At night in my bedroom and by day in the classroom, her image came between me and the page that I strove to read. The syllables of the word Araby were called to me through the silence in which my soul luxuriated and cast an Eastern enchantment over me. I asked for leave to go to the bazaar on Saturday night. My aunt was surprised and hoped it was not some Freemason affair. I answered few questions in class. I watched my master's face pass from amiability to sternness. He hoped I was not beginning to idle. I could not call my wandering thoughts together. I had hardly any patience with serious work of life, which, now that it stood between me and my desire, seemed to me child's play. Ugly, monotonous child's play. Okay, so we're going to look at tone first. So this is, how does the character feel towards the subject? So the subject here is perhaps this obsession with Mangan's sister, okay? So we know that he laid waste to his waking and sleeping thoughts. He wished to annihilate tedious days. He chafed against work of school. Her image was interrupting his class days. His soul luxuriated thinking about the word Araby. He answered few questions in class. His wandering thoughts were hard to understand and keep together. He had no patience for the serious work of life, and he sort of sees this desire as child's play. He saw anything else that stood between him and his desire as child's play. Schoolwork didn't matter, nothing mattered except for her. So his tone is distressed. He's consumed, right? But if we're thinking about mood, okay, so this is how the audience might read what's going on here. It comes off as almost desperate, like maybe a little too much. It's obviously obsessed to the point of maybe unhealthy, maybe a little bit bridging into the gap of unhealthy obsession. So the tone that he has is he's like needy, desperate. But the mood that it's maybe having for the audience is maybe a little bit more distant from that. Maybe you feel worried for him because maybe you feel like it's not going to go well. Or maybe you almost feel like a little creeped out and you feel that distance. Let's keep reading and let's see how the tone and mood might shift. On Saturday morning, I reminded my uncle that I wished to go to the bazaar in the evening. He was fussing at the hall stand, looking for the hat brush, and answered me curtly, "Yes, boy, I know." As I was in the hall, I could not go into the front parlor and lie at the window. I felt the house in bad humor and slowly walked towards the school. The air was piteously raw, and already my heart misgave me. When I came home to dinner, my uncle had not yet been home. Still, it was early. I sat staring at the clock for some time, and when its ticking began to irritate me, I left the room. I mounted the staircase and gained the upper part of the house. So here we almost see his nervousness. He's like unable to focus, or maybe hyper focused. But the mood here, we're starting to feel a little bit more sadness from him. This whole thing feels very lonely. You know, he wants to go to this bazaar because he wants to show this girl he likes her. And his uncle brushes him off, and he's in the house by himself. He's home alone. No one's paying attention to him. And so now maybe the mood is shifting to one of sadness. We feel the lonesomeness. He just wants someone to pay attention to him. That's sort of coming through to me as the mood. Read a little bit more. The high, cold, empty, gloomy rooms liberated me, and I went from room to room singing. From the front window, I saw my companions playing below in the street. Their cries reached me weakened and indistinct, and leaning my forehead against the cool glass, I looked over to the dark house where she lived. I may have stood there for an hour, seeing nothing but the brown-clad figure cast by my imagination, touched discreetly by the lamplight at the curved neck, the hand upon the railings and the border below the dress. Right? So the tone and mood have really separated here. His tone is still one of desire, of longing, but the mood has shifted. We now have this distance from the narrator, from the main character. And especially because, we see that he's looking out in the street and we see that all of his companions are playing. He's not there. He's separated from them. He feels like he's the only one there. He feels this distance. He wants to reach out. He stays there for an hour looking for her. And there's nothing there, just his imagination. When you're thinking about tone and mood, remember that separation between character and audience, because it can really play in to how you're going to describe it. While the character seems obsessively tedious in his understandings of the world and in his observations, the mood of the story is one of distance, loneliness, and almost coldness, of being the only one that understands, or the only one that feels, and feeling like you're disconnected from others. I know it seems like a sad place to stop, but that's where we're going to stop for now. And we'll come back next time and talk a little bit more about some other literary techniques.